For years, dirty jobs revealed the grittiest, most dangerous work in America. But behind the laughs and grit was a hidden truth, one so serious it led to the show's quiet cancellation in 2012. What happened off camera changed everything. This wasn't about ratings. This was about risk, illness, even death. Now, for the first time, we uncover the real reason Dirty Jobs was shut down and the discovery that made continuing impossible. The rise of Dirty Jobs. When Dirty Jobs premiered on July 26, 2003, it wasn't just another reality show. It was a cultural statement. Hosted by Mike Rowe, the series pulled back the curtain on America's most thankless professions. From wastewater treatment plants to pig farms, Rowe didn't just narrate, he joined in, getting hands-on in hazardous, filthy, and often dehumanizing conditions. In over 300 episodes, viewers watched him shovel, scrub, and crawl through the job that kept society functioning. The show's success was immediate, becoming one of Discovery Channel's highest-rated programs by 2007. More than just ratings, the show reshaped how people viewed blue-collar labor. For decades, society had drifted toward celebrating white-collar careers and devaluing manual work. Dirty Jobs flipped that script. By spotlighting professions like roadkill cleanup or coal mining, it forced audiences to confront how dependent their lives were on labor they rarely noticed. Schools, families, and even career counselors began using episodes as teaching tools. Rowe's voice, sardonic but sincere, bridged the gap between admiration and discomfort, reminding viewers that civilization stands on the backs of its dirtiest workers. But from the start, there were warning signs. Rowe and his crew entered spaces that required hazmat suits, gas detectors, and respiratory equipment. While the humor was genuine, each episode was laced with risk. Viewers watched, often laughing, as Mike fell into industrial sludge or climbed into unstable mine shafts. What they didn't see were the safety briefings, near misses, and mounting injuries happening just out of frame. The production wasn't simply storytelling, it was a physically demanding, high-stakes operation, and it came at a price. By season 6 in 2009, Rowe began publicly speaking about the toll it was taking. Long hours, toxic exposures, and relentless travel began to erode morale. Behind the laughter was a mounting sense of exhaustion, for Mike, for the crew, and often for the workers they featured. The show had started as an homage to labor, but increasingly it resembled the very grind it set out to honor. What began as a love letter to working America was becoming a cautionary tale. As Dirty Jobs grew in popularity, the dangers lurking behind the camera became harder to ignore. What viewers saw was only a fraction of the full picture, a reality that would soon push the cast and crew to their limits. The hidden cost behind the cameras. From the outside, Dirty Jobs was all jokes and gags. But behind the lens, the crew waded through toxic waste, climbed into 110-degree attics, and stood inches from machinery that could crush a limb in seconds. Each shoot demanded a balance between capturing compelling footage and ensuring survival. In one 2008 episode, a malfunctioning pressure valve exploded near the team, sending shards flying. Another time, Rowe slipped into a 20-foot deep sludge tank, needing immediate rescue. These were not staged stunts. They were occupational hazards. The crew paid dearly. Camera operator Tim Schaefer later developed chronic bronchitis, believed to stem from chemical exposure during a 2010 episode inside a poultry rendering plant. A sound technician collapsed from heat stroke while filming in a Phoenix furnace room. One lighting assistant fell from a 14-foot catwalk, sustaining multiple fractures. These weren't isolated events. They were part of a growing pattern. Filming wasn't just grueling, it was life-altering. Even insurance providers began flagging the show as high-risk content. Mike Rowe himself admitted in a 2011 interview that the show had nearly killed him more than once. He recalled a scene where his gas detector turned red while he was crawling through a sewer tunnel, only realizing the danger when he lost his breath. Despite these dangers, Rowe felt compelled to continue, stating that if the workers did it every day, he could endure it too. That ethic earned him admiration, but it also revealed a brutal truth. The show was built on shared suffering. Off camera, the emotional toll was equally heavy. Crew members frequently cited nightmares, panic attacks, and stress-induced illnesses. Filming multiple episodes over consecutive 18-hour days, often in remote or hazardous locations, drained them mentally. The reality of seeing injury and death up close, not in combat zones but on farms, factories, and treatment plants, left scars. As the show gained prestige, the crew's health quietly deteriorated. And as we'll see next, the workers they spotlighted often fared no better. While the crew faced the danger head-on, the people they filmed, the workers, shouldered an equally devastating burden. Their stories, briefly shown on television, held tragedies that extended long after the cameras stopped rolling them. The laborers featured. Every episode of Dirty Jobs featured individuals who did the world's hardest, least appreciated work. Many were longtime veterans of their trades, 20-year welders, fourth-generation crab fishermen, coal miners who had survived multiple collapses. Their inclusion in the show gave them a few minutes of national recognition, often for the first time. But behind that spotlight was a complicated reality. Visibility for many brought not opportunity, but consequences. Some were laid off after the episode aired, as employers feared inspections or liability. Others faced social consequences. In small towns, where pride and privacy often go hand in hand, sudden media attention wasn't always welcome. One sanitation worker from Iowa, featured in 2011, reported being mocked for the nature of his job despite national praise. Another, a female cattle processor from Texas, faced online harassment after her episode trended. While Mike Rowe aimed to show dignity in labor, the internet wasn't always so kind. Fame made some proud, but it made others vulnerable. Even worse, the work didn't get easier once the cameras stopped rolling. A 2010 coal miner, celebrated for his humor and resilience, died 2 years later of lung disease, worsened by years of dust exposure. A commercial diver featured in Season 5 drowned on a job shortly after filming. Their appearances didn't bring safety improvements, health benefits, or job security. They brought memories, some inspiring, others haunting. Mike Rowe later admitted he kept a private list of those who passed away after appearing on the show. For many, being on Dirty Jobs was a badge of honor, but it was also a reminder that their roles in society were crucial yet thankless, that even when noticed, their struggles remained unchanged, and that in some cases, telling their story came with personal cost. As the show's legacy grew, so did the realization that real change couldn't come from visibility alone. It required systemic support. And next, we'll explore how the production itself began to break under that weight. The production becomes a burden. Behind the scenes, the production of Dirty Jobs was becoming just as grueling as the labor it portrayed. By 2010, the logistics of each episode required extensive planning. Insurance teams, risk consultants, engineers, and often full-time safety officers. Locations were harder to secure, and many industrial sites demanded legal waivers or refused outright after hearing about prior crew injuries. The cost of simply filming one episode, logistically and emotionally, had ballooned far beyond the expectations set in the early seasons. The environments were unpredictable. One week, the crew would film inside a pig rendering plant at 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and the next inside a sub-zero meat locker. Equipment froze or overheated. Cameras short-circuited from dust or steam. In one 2012 segment, a piece of machinery shut down mid-filming, releasing compressed ammonia gas into the room. Emergency evacuation was the only option. Such events became regular enough that backup teams were assigned purely for disaster response, a rarity in non-scripted television. Emotionally, the weight of the show was mounting. The crew spent weeks on the road, often filming for 16 to 18 hours a day across multiple states. Motel rooms, truck stop food, and long hours created burnout. Several longtime crew members left quietly between seasons 7 and 8, citing exhaustion or health problems. For Mike Rowe, the pace was punishing. By the end of 2012, he confided to close colleagues that he was no longer sure he could keep doing it. The show was consuming him. Despite its mission to honor labor, Dirty Jobs had become a machine of labor itself. Rowe once joked that the real dirty job was working on the show, but it wasn't a punchline anymore. Behind every episode were dozens of people, hundreds of hours, and an unseen web of pressure. When the end came, it wouldn't be with fireworks. It would be a slow collapse from within. The mounting danger wasn't just a hazard, it became the reason the show ended. But when the cancellation came, the real reason was kept hidden. What followed was a quiet exit and a heavy silence. The discovery that changed everything. When Dirty Jobs was canceled in 2012, the announcement came with little fanfare. Discovery Channel offered vague reasons, shifting audience focus, creative direction, room for new programming. But insiders tell a different story. The real reason, many believe, was the discovery that the show had quietly become too dangerous to continue. Insurance claims were rising. One crew member had been hospitalized for toxic mold exposure. Another was recovering from a fall. The network had started flagging episodes as unsustainable. Mike Rowe later admitted he wasn't shocked when the call came. He'd seen the signs, the debriefs after every near miss, the exhausted faces, the medical bills. What really hit hard, though, was that the show had become a reflection of the very thing it was trying to elevate. It was breaking people. The camera crew, the producers, the workers, they were all paying a physical and mental price. It wasn't just a show anymore. It was a burden. Privately, there were meetings. Legal consultants reviewed footage from a 2011 shoot that resulted in serious injury. Safety auditors from Discovery were dispatched on location during Season 8, documenting alarming patterns, lack of rest periods, outdated equipment, exposure to volatile substances. By then, some in management were asking an uncomfortable question. Was continuing Dirty Jobs worth the risk? The answer eventually was no. What made it worse was how it ended. There was no farewell special, no retrospective, just a quiet fade from the schedule. The team was informed in fragments. Some heard from producers, others from emails. Many didn't know until they showed up to pre-production meetings and found them canceled. The shutdown was as abrupt as it was silent. The show that had celebrated resilience ended with an unspoken message. The cost had become too high. The show's end stunned fans, but for Mike Rowe and his crew, it felt like a slow-motion collapse. And once the cameras stopped, the emotional toll finally caught up to them. The aftermath for the host and crew. When the final season of Dirty Jobs wrapped, Mike Rowe didn't rush into new projects. Instead, he disappeared from television for a while. The years of filming in America's harshest conditions, waste pits, steel mills, fisheries, had taken a deep personal toll. Rowe described feeling hollow, fatigued, and emotionally raw. The emotional weight of carrying so many workers' stories had left him questioning not only the show, but himself. He said in a 2013 interview that he felt adrift, unsure whether the show had honored its subjects or exploited their pain. The crew, too, dispersed with scars. Some found work on other productions, but many left the industry altogether. A few moved into safety consulting, motivated by what they had endured. Others, like longtime assistant producer Cara Delaney, reportedly struggled with depression and anxiety for years after the show's end. Many avoided watching reruns. One crew member said that seeing old episodes felt like watching ghosts. The places, the people, the dangers all too real. In the years that followed, Mike Rowe shifted focus to the Mike Rowe Works Foundation, a nonprofit he had quietly launched in 2008. It now became his main mission, funding trade school scholarships, promoting vocational training, and speaking on behalf of America's laborers. Though he rarely spoke in detail about the show's end, he once said, "Dirty Jobs was the start of something bigger. It hurt to end it, but what it taught me won't ever end." The workers' stories. While the crew of Dirty Jobs walked away changed, the workers they featured often faced a harsher reality. For many, being on television didn't mean a safer job or as improved working conditions. In fact, it sometimes made life harder. A 2011 episode that featured a chemical plant technician led to the facility being investigated by OSHA, resulting in layoffs. The technician was among those let go. Visibility, in some cases, painted targets on workers' backs. Some participants felt pride in showcasing their trade, but others faced mockery. A septic tank cleaner from New Jersey who appeared in season 5 reported being harassed online after his episode aired. For a small handful, the attention led to opportunities, consulting gigs, or speaking engagements. But for most, life returned to the same hazardous jobs. Dirty Jobs didn't offer rescue. It offered recognition. And recognition doesn't pay medical bills or shield against injury. The spotlight had faded, but one issue remained unresolved. Why had these vital jobs been invisible for so long? And what did that say about how society viewed labor itself? The broader issue. At its heart, Dirty Jobs wasn't just a TV show. It was a counter-narrative to the polished, corporate-driven vision of success America had embraced. For decades, the emphasis had been on white-collar work, college degrees, and clean office spaces. Mike Rowe challenged that. In 2009, during a widely viewed TED Talk, he questioned why we stigmatize essential labor while promoting academic paths that often lead to debt and unemployment. The show tapped into a growing anxiety, the fear that America had lost touch with the trades that built it. Electricians, welders, pipe fitters, garbage collectors. These weren't fallback careers. They were the infrastructure of modern life. Rowe's weekly visits to pig farms and power plants were a reminder that comfort comes at a fee paid by people few ever meet. Yet, despite the admiration the show stirred, systemic change was slow. And perhaps that's the hardest truth Dirty Jobs uncovered, that telling a story is not the same as changing the ending. As the series closed, a deeper lesson remained: the hidden message and why it's bad. The unspoken revelation behind Dirty Jobs was stark. America is built on invisible labor. The show made that labor visible, but at great cost. It entertained millions, educated thousands, and inspired hundreds. But it also hurt people. Mike Rowe has since admitted that what began as celebrations sometimes veered into spectacle. The show didn't intend to exploit pain, but it often documented it, and pain, once seen, can't be unseen. The bad part, as the title implies, isn't the cancellation. It's the realization that the work continues, often in worse conditions and rarely with attention. Some tradespeople featured in early episodes now live on disability or have passed away. Their names never made the credits. Their stories, briefly shared, were forgotten by most. That's the tragedy. The story moved on, but their lives didn't. And so what began as a TV show ended as something else, a mirror. One that reflected a country too often blind to the hands that hold it up. But Mike Rowe wasn't finished yet. The legacy of Dirty Jobs and the road ahead. After Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe didn't vanish. He evolved. His Mike Rowe Works Foundation, launched in 2008, became his full-time mission. By 2023, it had awarded over $6 million in trade scholarships. He hosted new shows like Returning the Favor, but none matched the raw intimacy or cultural weight of Dirty Jobs. Instead, he became a speaker, advocate, and storyteller for the working class, on his terms, in safer spaces. The legacy of Dirty Jobs lives on in reruns, YouTube clips, and trade school posters. But its deeper impact lies in how it changed conversations. Teachers now show it in classrooms. Politicians reference it in debates. Guidance counselors use it to explain career diversity. It redefined what was worthy of respect. Not glamour, not gloss, grit. Rowe continues to speak about those years with equal parts pride and sorrow. He honors the crew members who gave everything, including their health. He pays tribute to the workers who were featured, especially those who are no longer here. And he urges viewers not to forget that those dirty jobs never stopped. They're still happening. Still necessary, still overlooked. The road ahead is long. Changing how society views work, manual, skilled, essential work, takes more than a TV show. It takes legislation, education, cultural humility, but Dirty Jobs started the conversation. It turned a spotlight toward the overlooked, even if it couldn't shield them from harm. Its message endures that no job is beneath respect, and that the people who keep the country running deserve more than just thanks. They deserve support. Dirty Jobs wasn't just a show, it was a revelation. It honored labor, exposed injustice, and carried a cost no one saw coming. Mike Rowe and his team gave voice to the invisible, even as they paid the price. Now that the truth is known, we're left with a choice: forget the pain or fight for the people who live it every day. Because behind every dirty job, there's a story worth remembering.